Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our admin. The message reads like this: I never thought that my life would turn out like this. When I left Lesotho, I had dreams just like any other woman. I wanted to make enough money in a very short period of time. After making the money, then I would return back home. All that I wanted was to support my family and maybe even build a life for myself. But life has a way of twisting you, of turning your dreams into absolute nightmares. And this is my own story of how I ended up killing my own madam using charms, a choice that I can never undo. All that I wanted was a better life for me so that I can provide for those that I had left back home. Well, I arrived in Johannesburg. When I came to Johannesburg, I was living a life that was hopeful. I was full of hope. Things back home in Lesotho, they weren't that great, and I was told that there were opportunities in South Africa. I thought that I would be working as a domestic worker, something simple, but things did not go that way. I was then introduced to my madam, a powerful and wealthy woman who was living in a very beautiful home, a mansion here in Sandton. At first, it seemed like I had landed the perfect job. I was to be her live-in maid. The moment that I arrived at her home, this was after another woman who knew my mom, and she was the one who had told my mom that if I could come, then she would go with me to this woman who was in need of a maid. The moment that I arrived, she looked at my phone and she said, "What type of a phone are you using?" And I showed her. She then went to her bedroom. She gave me, this was my first ever iPhone that I ever used after she had wiped off all of the things that were still inside her iPhone. She said, "That one you can just throw it in the bin because it is an old phone." I was so happy. Wi-Fi, whenever they were not at work, I would have that opportunity to sit even in their living room, just enjoy watching movies or even get into the tub, just relaxing. Then when they would be coming back, she always made sure that she would call me to let me know so that she would be coming home. Then I would quickly start to clean and wear my uniform again. I thought that since I was her live-in maid, I thought that I would be able to save some money, send it back home, and slowly make a better life. But soon I realized that she was not just a normal employer. She treated me like I was beneath her, always backing orders, constantly making me feel like I was not worth anything. Like, what she did not like about me was that I am someone who is gifted. I have the right curves in the right places. So this was like a crime. She used to make me wear these very big dresses to make me look like I was an old woman, yet I was young. If I did not do things exactly as how she wanted, she would insult me, calling me a stupid girl from the mountains, and reminding me how lucky I was to be working for her. Worst of all, now that I did not have any papers at all, she controlled everything that I did, from what I ate to when I could speak. But the worst part was how she used her power. My madam was not just wealthy, she was cruel. She had a way of manipulating people, of making them feel so small. Over time, I felt myself breaking down emotionally and mentally. There were nights when I would cry myself to sleep, wondering why I had ever left home. Ended up sleeping with a guy who used to come and do the garden services, even though he was not my type. But because of the loneliness, I just thought that if I have a boyfriend, maybe it was going to be okay. But it even became worse when I slept with that guy because he was just unhelpful. That was when I met a woman, a Mozambican woman who was working for another woman also in that same rich neighborhood. We became close, bonded over our shared experiences since we were both foreigners in a foreign land. She was not like other maids. She had been through a lot and had learned how to survive in ways that I never even considered. As rich as her bosses were, but they were taking advantage of her since she was like me, no documentation, no nothing. One evening, after a particularly bad day, I told her everything, how my madam was destroying me, how I could not take it anymore. She listened, and after a long silence, that was when she said, there is a way to stop it. So she said there was a way that she could help me to stop it. At first, I didn't understand what she meant, but she explained to me that she knew a very powerful healer back home in her country. That man was like her own relatives. All that was needed was for some money. If we could get some money, then the relative will come to South Africa. Someone could help me. You do not have to suffer like this, she said. There are charms, ways to protect yourself, to get rid of people who harm you. I never thought about it. If she knew this powerful traditional healer, how come she had not yet managed to bewitch her own bosses so that they can give her a lot of money? I was hesitant. I had heard about charms and witchcraft growing up in Lesotho, but I had never been involved in anything like that. But at that moment, I was desperate. I felt trapped, like there was no way out, and she told me that the charms, they were for protection and they could be used to get rid of someone for good. A few weeks later, when I had gotten my salary, we then organized, and then the man traveled from Mozambique and came. This man, when he spoke with me, I knew that he knew what he was talking about. He told me my mother's name, my father's surname, everything, and I listened as he was telling me everything that had happened in my life. After he had finished, he handed me a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside there were some herbs, powders, and a small curved bone. He told me to mix the contents of the bundle into my madam's tea for 3 consecutive days, only the powder and the herbs, a little bit, he said. And after that, he said, then she will be no more. I felt a chill run through me. I was not sure if I could go through with it. When we returned back to work, and then when I stepped into that mansion, when I saw my madam, the way that she was looking at me like I was nothing more than dirt under her feet, I knew what I had to do. Even when I would take a picture using her iPhone, she would be like, if it was not for you, then how were you going to see that you are glowing? You are glowing because you are staying under my roof. I followed the healer's instructions exactly. Each morning, I would make her some tea, just like I always did, but this time I would add just a little bit of the powder so that the taste won't change that much. At first, nothing happened. She drank it without noticing anything, but by the 3rd day, things started to change. My madam fell sick, so sick that she could barely get out of bed. She complained of sharp pains in her chest and burning sensations in her stomach. I watched her as she was suffering, growing weak, but there was no sympathy that was left in me. All that I could think about was the years of torment that she had put me through and the way that she had stripped me of my dignity. After about a week, she was dead, just like what the healer told me. I thought that I would feel relief, maybe even some satisfaction, but instead I was left with emptiness. I was given more charms because I was feeling lonely, and my boss was talking about selling his house since he had left his wife. That was when I also gave him some charms. After I had given him some charms, he said that you are the most attractive woman that I have ever met. That is how I got married to my husband.